Welcome to the Maverick Podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Rose. And as always, a big shout out to all the free spirits, the independent thinkers, and the Mavericks walking their unique path. Thanks for listening. All right, all my Maverick friends, I hope you're ready for today's guest. We're going to have a great conversation with a very creative lady. We have actress Jane Lynch today. Welcome, Jane. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast today.
I'm so thrilled to be with you, Kathy, and thank you for inviting me. Actually, I invited myself.
Well, that's as it should be. As it should be.
Yeah.
I want to explore a dimension of you that a whole lot of people probably don't know about, and that is your interest in astrology and your knowledge in astrology.
Well, you're the one with the knowledge. You're my teacher, Kathy.
Yeah.
So, but I know a little bit, probably enough to be dangerous.
That is a great phrase, enough to be dangerous. It's amazing how many people. However, a few of your friends have told me you're actually quite gifted.
Oh, well, that's nice of them to say. I because I have this Aries moon, I get overwhelmed very easily with, like, when I look at a chart and I just want to cut to it. So sometimes I cut to it too fast. So I think that's what keeps me from being maybe a better astrologer. I should use my Taurus moon or my Taurus Mars to slow down.
Well, I'm not sure about that because, I also have an Aries moon.
Yeah.
And a Taurus Mars. And cutting to it, simplifies matters and gets right to the point. So I actually like that part. So just so the listeners know, you are a Cancer sun. And what's interesting is you have a stellium in Cancer in the 12th house. Now, Not everybody who listens to this podcast is an astrologer, but that 12th house orientation in your chart is fascinating because, you can take that in so many directions. It's a spiritual component. It's connecting with the universe. It's creative. But it also carries some other implications about needing to feel safe with being visible and exposed. So I want to explore that 12th house orientation, especially because
I love it.
You've been going through some Pluto transits since COVID, and you just completed them, although Pluto is still aspecting your chart. Tell me how you have discovered your own power and potential, particularly since COVID, if we're speaking spiritually. What's that journey been like for you?
Well, I had Pluto in Capricorn opposing my Sun, Mercury, and Venus. And that goes from 21 degrees down to 28 degrees where my Venus is, and then my ascendant to 0 Leo. So it's still dancing with me, Pluto, and will continue. I've been low-grade depressed. And I've been trying to, that's how I got back into astrology. I was kind of not as, I wasn't watching transits. I wasn't watching my transits. And then I was just feeling low-grade depressed. And I thought, well, let's look at your chart. And I went, oh, at the time I looked at my chart, Pluto was actually on my Saturn in the 6th house. So that's pretty heavy. That's pretty depressive. And it, so I started watching it. And what happened is, like, I'll go to my Venus because that's more clear to me, because it's 12th house. It's not so clear what exactly it is. It's not really tangible. But my Venus, what happened when it was opposing my Venus and backing over it, hitting it again and backing over it, nothing that used to pleasure me in the past was working anymore. And I was at a loss. I cannot drink coffee without terrible stomach ramifications. That doesn't mean I've stopped, because I'm kind of an addictive person. I'm looking for the pleasure. I can't redecorate my house anymore. It just can't. First of all, my wife won't let me. It's just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. I was just so dissatisfied with it, and it means a lot to me. I have Libra ruling my 4th house, so that kind of stuff means a lot to me. Aesthetic. Look, I'm getting all red doing this. Yeah, as I talk about this, beauty means a lot to me, especially where I live, and being a Cancer.
Yes,
that it kind of doubles up on it. So as Pluto started going into it's in my 7th house now, and opposing my my first house, which of course is my ascendant. So it's at my descendant and my ascendant right now. And I don't know exactly how that's working out. I'm still feeling the ramifications of the Venus. But I would imagine I'm in for something. I'm in for some big transformation in who I am to myself, which is the first house, and how people see me, and my relationships, my one-on-ones in the seventh house. So it'll be interesting to see how that takes place. But I will say, just health-wise, I started paying attention to the fact that Pluto is in my sixth and has been in my sixth house for several years now. My asthma's back. It's like I'm getting a big kick of bad health. I have a little bit of asthma, and it turned into I almost wanted to say tuberculosis. What's the word? Oh, bronchitis. I don't have tuberculosis.
Cancel that one.
Yeah, really. I've had 2 bouts of bronchitis, and I have really bad tension in my shoulders and in my rib cage, which constricts my breathing. So there's a breath thing, and I'm throwing everything at it. I'm at a chiropractor. I'm being Rolfed. I did a Christmas tour where I sing. We go all over the country, and I had to cut a lot of my songs because I could not get through them breath-wise. So there you go. There's your answer.
Okay, so step by step here. Pluto on your descendant right now, another aspect of the descendant is connection with the public. And the sense I get when I look at your chart, as Pluto's hitting the descendant, it's emerging out into public view with a new level of empowerment, of personal empowerment. I mean, this is going to be fascinating to watch all of this year and all of next year, how the universe pushes you out there in a new way. Well, I'm sorry to hear about the breathing issues, but what's fascinating about that with your Mars and Taurus and Mars ruling the shoulders and the neck, how important it would be for you to get massage, especially shoulders and neck area.
Yeah. And there's a lot going on. You're in Mars is in Taurus too, right? I mean, everything's happening there right now. That Jupiter and Uranus. And,
yeah, there are fireworks and explosions going on. And as a matter of fact, as we are recording this today on March 7th, we have Mars and Uranus square hitting this part of our chart. I'm not feeling particularly grounded these days. I don't know about you, but it's like electricity in the air.
Yeah, I was, I know New York very well. And I got out of the subway and I was on 14th Street, and I didn't understand what 14th Street meant. You know how when you don't know where you're at, you go in your mind for like a memory? I couldn't find a memory that would tell me what direction, and I walked the wrong way. And then I found the right way, and I just didn't recognize anything. And I know this area, so I know what you mean by, I felt very ungrounded.
And in July of this year, 2024, we're going to have Mars Uranus conjunct and activate this again. So it's a lot of breathing, it's a lot of grounding, and a lot of exercise. As you are in New York right now working, you probably don't get the same connection with nature that you would be, or that you would get when you're in California. I would suspect that nature helps you quite a bit.
It does. And I have the Central Park right here. So I get like kind of lazy and stay in my hotel room because I have a lot of time off. I don't work every day. So like yesterday, I went to the gym here in the hotel and I walked around a lot. I did like 14,000 steps. So I'm taking advantage of it, and in the rain too. So I think I should get some kudos for that.
You do. I'm applauding you.
Thank you.
Well, there's an aspect about your chart I want to talk about, which is the fact that there are 2 people that live in your chart in a way. There's all this Cancer softness and Venus on your ascendant in your natal chart, which is so friendly, so nice, so connected with beauty. So there's that part that wants to please, that wants to create that harmony, but that's contrasted with your moon in Aries, which is quite dynamic and leadership and powerful, which came out in your role as Sue Sylvester.
Yes.
That was Mars and Aries. All you had to do is channel moon in Aries, channel that. But you can, when you act, you have a very special authority projection. This is not news to you. I understand that. But you can tap into that authority in an instant. In fact, there's a favorite line that you did in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and I have it written down on my phone. I capture certain quotes when I hear them that I think are spectacular. And you did this on Mrs. Maisel, which is, and you said it so brilliantly. You said, and I'm phrasing these as questions, but they're not. And you just nailed it. And I went, oh my God, I would
Thank you.
love to say that in a consultation someday, but they are
But they're
not.
not.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And, so that authority vibe came through so clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Wrestling with that part of you, the assertive, powerful side, and this
Mm-hmm.
nice side, it's a very interesting contrast.
Yeah, I'm told, because I do play a lot of authority figures. I started out playing a lot of doctors. People said you should have
Mhm.
your own lab coat for all the doctors I've played, or therapists or gynecologists or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and people will say, because I'm kind of a people pleaser, less these days, purpose. I mean, I don't want to be mean, but I don't default to it so people like me. But in my early career, I did. People say, my gosh, you're nothing like that
Mhm.
kind of character that you play. So I do have that assertiveness and cutting to the point, like the Aries moon does. Let's get to the nitty gritty here. Let's not fool around. Let's get right to it. And I have that in my character that I have felt like guilty about. Uh,
Mm.
so yeah, I have been like two people: the one who's kind of soft and maternal and doesn't want to hurt anybody, and then the one that's just like, let's just cut through the crap.
Mhm.
Let's. I don't want to entertain this BS anymore. Let's just get
Yeah.
right to it. Call
Well,
a spade a spade.
I have a deep understanding of this because I have that same conflict in my
Yep.
chart too. And
Yep.
it's a lot easier to be a male with
Yeah.
Moon and Aries and the dynamic leadership, assertive part than it
Right.
is female. Of course, we're hoping in years to come it will be easier for women to step into these roles. But in our generation, being direct to the point, leadership, being driven for excellence,
Mm-hmm.
you had to be very careful how you navigated that as a female.
I never felt like a female, and I still don't. I've always felt like a male from
Interesting.
when I was a kid. My body did not match what I
Hmm.
felt.
Hmm.
Um, and if someone had offered me like hormones or something back then, I probably would have said yes, thank you. And of course, now I'm glad to be just who I am, because the idea of gender for me has just fallen away.
Yeah.
And I do have cultivated some of the feminine too. It's cultivated me. It's come out, because I love
Hmm.
children and I love animals, and my heart breaks for old people, and I'm becoming one of those old people now. But I do have that. But I think because I never really felt like a female, um, no one ever questioned me when I was assertive. Like sometimes I walk into a store and someone's looking right at me and they say, "Can I help you, sir?" They're looking right at me, and I don't look like a man.
Hmm.
But I guess, I mean, I'm soft. I'm not. I don't look masculine. I just
Hmm.
have a masculine energy. So if you're kind of, not really paying attention, "Can I help you, sir?" And then they go, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I go, "Happens all the
Yeah. It's the
time."
projection of polarity. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
projection of that. Well,
yeah.
and speaking of that, so let's talk about a little bit of your own maverick path, especially when you were younger.
Mm-hmm.
um, and realizing you were gay at a time when being gay wasn't necessarily that easy. It wasn't
Yeah.
applauded. It was still,
Mm.
you're having to wrestle with it quite a bit. And I remember hearing in an interview you did once where you said you didn't tell your parents until you were about 31. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we didn't even talk about being gay, and the word was never uttered.
Yeah.
It wasn't in our. There was no reference to it at all. My parents didn't know anybody gay. They probably did, but didn't know they did. I didn't know anybody gay, and so I felt like I had some kind of a disease. And
Hmm.
I know for a fact it was in the DSM as a disease for a while. The
Yeah.
isn't that what it's called? The
Yeah.
psychological
Yeah. Something like
um,
that. Hmm.
malady, whatever it's called. And a friend of mine was studying psychology, and I looked it up, and homosexuality was in there. And oh God, that's what I have.
Yeah, that's quite the soul journey to realize that about yourself and then to hold it in and wrestle with it and try to say, how do I express this? And am I safe to express this? And is it okay to be who I am?
For a long time, it wasn't. For a long time, it was just don't even think about it, don't talk about it. And I would have crushes on girls, and I just would push it aside, or I'd imagine myself as a man with them, which was easy to do because I kind of felt like a man. But I never thought it was something I would be able to actually actualize in my life.
Yeah, so I bet there were some lonely moments.
Yeah, kind of all by yourself. And I've met a lot of people who feel that way now too. And it's kind of nice to, there was a campaign by Dan Savage, who's a big gay advocate, and it was called "It Gets Better." Do you remember that? It Gets Better. It's where Obama did one too. We all did videos, a lot of gay people and a lot of straight people too, sending to kids, in parts of the country where it's just not embraced. In fact, they could be in danger if they were to say it. And that's, I thought that was such a powerful thing to take part in, to say, look, I know how you feel and it gets better. I swear to you, it gets better.
Yeah, it is coming full circle and appreciating and loving who you are and knowing you deserve to be loved for exactly who you are. And again, that's part of the Maverick path. And that is one reason I do this podcast, is that sense that, we don't have to be cookie cutter people. It's okay to think outside the box. No, we shouldn't.
Absolutely. We should.
I couldn't be if I tried.
I know.
I mean, I was studying astrology when I was 8 years old. Now, I didn't have the issue with sexuality being different than the norm, but I did have an issue with the fact that I was so interested in psychic development and astrology and everything metaphysical, even in third grade.
Oh my God, the dark arts.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I was walking around with a little notebook in fourth grade, asking my playmates, asking my schoolmates, when's your birthday? And I would write it down, then I would observe them, and I would be taking notes while we're on the playground. They thought it was crazy. They thought it was crazy,
So you were to the manner born. I mean, it was in you early on.
Yes. Yeah. And you have to accept that about yourself and say, and part of an Aries moon says, well, I don't care what they think. I have to be who I am.
Yeah, try 3 planets in the 12th house in Cancer, and then you will worry about that.
Yes.
Yeah. I just wanted everybody to, like me. I wanted to be a part of the group. I didn't want to be outside.
So, what happened when you were about 14 years old? Is that when you came to really understand your own sexuality, or was it early? I'm asking that because age 14 and 15, you had a whole lot going on in your chart, including Pluto opposite your moon by transit.
Oh, Pluto. Oh, really? Wow. Well, that would have been my freshman year in high school. Hanging out with a bunch of girls that I was now attracted to, like a different one every week.
And having to compartmentalize that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm trying to think. I went on spring break when I was 15. I went to Florida, and I took we all shared a hotel room. There were like 14 of us in 2 hotel rooms, so 7 in each. And I took the notepad from the desk in the hotel, and I wrote, "I'm gay." And I ripped it off, and I ran down to the beach, and I threw it out in a dumpster. But I had to say it. So I was 15. That would have been almost 1975.
So I bring it up because Pluto was operating in your chart then. And, one of the things a transit from Pluto does is it pushes us to face our limitations and fears. Takes us to the closet of monsters, and it pushes us in and says, go meet them. If a child were afraid of a monster under the bed, Pluto would give you a flashlight.
Right. Say, get under there and take a look.
Take a look.
Wow.
Okay. And so we get this opportunity to shine a light on limitations and fears and heal and purge at some new level, which has been your journey for the last several years with Pluto. I just think it's going to be fascinating to see this next stage as Pluto hits your descendant Do you have any particular urges for a creative new project? Do you have a part that you're yearning to play? Do you have a part of you that you would like to explore through acting? Does that come up
Not so
yet?
much. In fact,
Mhm.
I feel less and less inclined to act.
Mhm.
Um, I I don't know exactly where I'm going or what I'm waiting to see, and I know that it will show up. But over the last one of the results of those of Sun, Mercury, and Venus being opposed by Pluto for the last several years is my white hot ambition um, in the business and to create that way is less and less. I like creating characters like in my mind or situations, and I'm more open to being on the other side of the camera, and then I'm also open to just not do it at all. Um,
What
yeah,
would you
we'll
do
see.
instead?
I don't know. I
Yeah,
have no
it's
idea.
yet to be revealed.
It's yet to be revealed, and I think it does have something to do with. I'm not sure, but like asking you to be on your podcast was it like struck me one day. I don't know. I'm not going to become an astrologer. I don't have enough of a gift there, but it might have something to do with because my big there's a lot happening in my ninth house, and
Mhm.
my big obsessions these days are philosophy, parapsychology, non-duality,
Mhm.
near death experience. I mean, that's and the royal family. I'm obsessed with the royal family. But those are the things that I get lost in my YouTubes, watching and just love.
I could
And
see that about you.
Pam
Hmm.
Gregory, and you. I
Hmm.
watch both of you guys,
Hmm.
both of your channels.
Well, and you're scheduled to have massive spiritual development for the next 5, 10 years. I mean,
Good.
an accelerated spiritual development when Neptune and Saturn get into Aries and then start playing around with your moon.
Yeah.
Look
Well,
out.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Look out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the frontier. You know, what is so fascinating too is I think humanity is scheduled to go to that next level in understanding inner technology. I mean, we've
Yeah.
explored outer technology, our addiction to our phones and social media and so forth. But now the next wave of frontier is inner technology, our ability to connect with higher dimensions, body, mind, spirit connection, healing ourselves, our intuitive faculties, the dimension of the soul, all of this
I feel that
is
too.
just so ready to accelerate on so many
Yeah.
levels.
Yeah. I feel that too. I feel that coming. I feel that in me.
Mhm.
I think that's kind of the process. And then, when I stay away from the news, and just focus on the stuff that really, truly, not the adrenaline hits of the news, but the stuff that really, really inspires me. I feel the exact same way that it is. It's a journey inward to see what technology we have in here that is untapped that could make
Mhm.
the world a better place.
Mhm. Yeah, stepping away from the effect that
Mm-hmm.
the news programs us into. My son is
Mm-hmm.
in a band. His band
Yeah.
is called Zoomst, which is incredible. I think about it all the time because I'm on Zoom every day. But
Zoomst.
Zoomst. And they have an album that's starting to be released right now, but it's a concept album. And the story in that concept album is so deep and profound. And it
Mm.
really is about humanity waking up and stepping out of the reality show of being programmed to think a certain way,
Wow.
having your thoughts controlled by larger forces and waking up.
Perfect.
And
It's like breaking the spell.
yes, yes, 100%. And so I'm very proud of my son for one thing,
Yeah.
but that
He's your
story,
Pisces, right?
he's a Pisces,
Yeah.
yeah, with a stellium in Pisces in the 12th house.
There's a lot. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Wow.
he's
There's a
like a
lot going
walking
on for
Buddha.
him.
He's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've learned something from him, and you probably would relate to this as a amazing actress that you are, and that is the ability to channel when you're working, to relax and allow the universe to flow through you,
Yeah, absolutely.
um, so that you're not in control. He's a jam band musician, and my husband is a jamming sort of musician also. So I can watch them, and I watch them suspend
Yeah.
thinking so
Yeah.
that they can
Yeah.
jam and create in that moment. Now, a lot of the
Mm.
actors and actresses, especially comedic people, do that.
Yeah.
But I would think that that's a great gift for you.
Yeah, it is. And I think there is, and this is why you go to school, this is why you take jokes apart to see why one line of delivery works better than another. There's a left brain aspect to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's always a bit of your left brain aware when you're on stage, but the right brain becomes
Yes.
where you're working from. And you can see it in a real, from stand-ups to, musicians, to, someone on stage. It's harder to see in television and film because it's edited so closely. You don't get to really see it live, but
Mm-hmm.
on stage you can really see it, and it separates the men from the boys and the girls from the women. I think that ability to, you have a little bit of your awareness over here because you have to know I have to cross here. I have to make sure that I'm in the right light when I do this, and that just, you've rehearsed it so much that it becomes second nature, and you can pop into inspiration and presence and just
Mm-hmm.
be right there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but when I ask my son about jamming, he says it's about not thinking and it's about listening. And he
Oh,
said,
great.
and it's about being 100% present,
Mm-hmm.
because if you're not present, you can't do it,
Absolutely.
which
And
is
that's
so
especially
important.
when you're working with other people who are jamming. And it's, it's
Mm-hmm.
why I work with jazz musicians in our Christmas show that we do, which means they can play any form. They
Yeah.
can play pop, they can play big band, because they're jazz players and they listen to
Mm-hmm.
each other and they have their fundamentals down where they can just, you know, uh, just sit there and listen and respond and be in the moment. And to watch them do that
Oh,
is like a transcendent experience.
exactly. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of athletes are like that too. Back in my martial arts days, I noticed that athletes were sometimes the most spiritual people I knew,
Mm-hmm.
because they would shift into that right brain and respond in the moment as opposed to think it. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
amazing thing athletes can do, NFL players on the field responding to signals that nobody gets, but they do, and being in the
Yeah.
right place to catch that ball and
Yeah. And a
score.
lot of it is being in tune with each other. And we call it being in the zone. It's
Exactly.
literally being in the zone with your fellow players. And it's like a dance.
Mm-hmm.
There's some book, and I forget what it is, but I know I read the chapter on Billie Jean King where she talks about being completely mindless
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
playing, where she knew where the ball was coming before it even
Yes.
left the racket of her opponent.
Yes. And that is
Yeah.
so mystical and incredible. I had a moment like that once in martial arts because the training master I had hated me. I was too strong of a woman and I wasn't
Oh, lovely.
obedient enough. And
All right.
he was very classic Korean.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody told me I was supposed to be obedient. If they had told me, I might have been a little different, but I asked questions and I got in trouble. So he would put me in the sparring ring in very dangerous situations. And one time he put these two very large males who were experts, and I had to spar two people with no training on how to spar two. He said, Kathy, go do it, go do it. And out of survival, what happened was almost a moment from the Matrix when
Uh-huh.
everything slowed down
Yeah.
and I went into this hyper zone that I can't even begin to explain. It was the best sparring I have ever done in my life. But the mystical moment that we face when we surrender. Um,
Yeah. Your back is up against the ropes or the wall,
mhm,
and you have no choice but to just let it
mhm.
go, and something takes over.
Yeah, and we're going to be seeing that, I think, more and more with people realizing that inherent power within them. It's
Yeah.
starting now with Uranus and Taurus in us learning how
Yeah.
to be present,
Mm-hmm.
be here now, as
The
opposed to
Taurus.
thinking about 20,000 things in the future or the past.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I do have a quick question though, now changing subjects slightly. How did you start studying astrology? What age were you and how did that begin?
Linda Howe in Chicago.
Mm.
I was what year? Where was I? I was done with college. I was done with grad school. So it was like in the 80s. I was 30, no, about 25. I had an astrology reading with this woman, and it was my first, I think it was my first astrology reading. And she said, "You have an Aries moon." And I said, I don't know what that means. And she said, you're impatient. You want to be first, blah, 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 blah. And I went, I felt like I understood myself.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about the moon that I wanted to know everyone in my life. I wanted to know what their moon was. And I still do. To me, it's, if I want to get right to the point in an Aries moon fashion, I look up their moon.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what's going on, what motivates their behavior, what they do without thinking about it, how they respond. And because it made me understand me so clearly. I like got me.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get you, especially at that age where you're just thinking there's everything wrong with you, when you get something and you see you also at the same time see the gift of it, and they're like, no, that's who you're supposed to be. It's right here in your chart. And you go, it was such a relief. So that started me. That was the moment that started me.
And so as you became more and more famous as an actress, you probably had to do a lot of self-study. I mean, I had this little vision of you going to an astrology conference and the ripple effect. People would go nuts if you were at an astrology conference. They would go crazy.
Well, you know what I would do when I was in Chicago and I found out about this? I was in a Shakespeare company, and I would not cast a chart, but sun, moon, and rising for every character I played. Because I knew
that is amazing.
Who do they think that they are in the world? What is their essence, their sun, and what is their emotional truth?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, you can go crazy with that. That leads you to all very specific psychological places.
Yes. In fact, I've been contacted by somebody who is putting together a mini series and beginning the writing process with it, historically based. And he is asking me to start looking at the charts of the characters and describe them astrologically to him so that he can write them better, which is just amazing.
Yeah. Very smart.
Cool.
It's, there's so many ways to dig deep on a character. There's lots of techniques. And I'm sure someone has done this before me, but I just gotten out of graduate school where I was overwhelmed with different techniques, but I love a technique because that's what frees my right brain. If I'm doing something over here and I'm working, then this gets to play. And so the astrology of the person was just as good as the Stanislavski method for me, or the emotional center. Where's the emotional center for this person? What's their physical gesture? And this just was a tool that kind of took over for me.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. And there's a very right brain component to astrology. In fact, when I teach astrology, I teach from that place, which is why I would think you'd be an amazing astrologer if you ever went further with it.
Well, you've got your ABCs way down. That you did out of pure curiosity, you figured out how this stuff works, and you had a really good teacher too, didn't you? Noel?
Several, yes. Noel Till.
Noel Till. And so it's like you learned your scales, your piano scales, and now you can just improvise it. You operate from. Yeah.
And when I talk about a lot of my students who want to become consulting astrologers, I mention to them, you have to understand a good consultation is a jam session. You don't know, you have to find out how the person is living their chart, because there are many levels a person can live their chart, from the shadow side, from the highest level. I mean, a person could be a serial killer and have the same chart as somebody else who is a saint. It's how they're living it. But there is a very right brain component. Did you know about synesthesia?
Is that where you see, like, for numbers, you'll see like a color, or a note, you'll see a color? Yeah.
It's cross-sensing, cross-connection of senses. And a lot of creative people have some dose of it. When you read about it on the internet, it can be very limiting because it can show up in many, many ways. But I use a lot of synesthesia in astrology.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. And you can take planets and you can think about their texture. One of the things I use with students is, if I sent you to the fabric store and had you get me some fabric that was a Venusian fabric, I want a Venus fabric, what would you get? You wouldn't get canvas or burlap, right?
No.
You
Now
get
you might
something
get something
soft.
soft and shiny maybe, and
Mhm,
something that
mhm,
pleases you greatly and
mhm,
and isn't Venus, uh, don't we think blue and silver for Venus?
mhm. Or
Yeah.
pastels.
Or pastel,
Mhm,
soft pastel,
mhm,
like your room there.
mhm. And
Hmm.
if you got a Neptune fabric, it would kind of be in higher octave of that. It would still
Of
be
that, yeah.
soft. It might be gauzy. It might be flimsy. If you
Hmm.
contrast that to a Saturn fabric, that's where you
Canvas.
get canvas,
Yeah.
burlap, something durable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this gives you the frequency. See, what synesthesia does is it breaks things into frequencies. So we start thinking about the frequency of a person's voice or the frequency of their energy, or in this case of astrology, as opposed to just left brain keywords. And it
Yeah,
opens up
that's
a whole
great.
lot more information. But I
Yeah.
suspect you do that instinctively.
There is certainly a color aspect when I hear music.
Hmm.
I see like chords, I see colors, and
Yeah.
yeah, not it's not a very strong thing, but I know some people have it like where it is such a deep transcendent experience for them to hear music,
Hmm.
that it's like a painting,
Yeah.
or it's like an LSD trip.
Yes. I think we can develop it as far as we want. Mine got activated when I started creating mandalas. So for 12 years, I was a mandala artist, and the mandalas would actually sing, um, and chords would become discordant or harmonious with the colors and shapes and patterns. And it just accelerated. And then I applied it to astrology. And I think we're all capable of developing this, and creative types like
Mm-hmm.
you would,
Mm-hmm.
find that easier than other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet
So,
there are people who do very worldly things too that, like oh gosh, there was some movie about a guy who was trading on the market, and he just went into a place where that you don't get by crunching data.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
the the frontier we have in consciousness and tapping into higher levels is truly exciting. You did a campaign for Legos
Yeah.
where you talked about playing,
Yes.
and I thought it was brilliant because the frequency of play is
Yeah.
very different than the frequency of work.
Mm-hmm.
And you tapped it so well and you projected it. I thought to myself, the universe is doing something great here, because
Yeah.
that campaign that Legos had for play was working on a higher spiritual level too.
I
Because,
agree.
yeah, you felt it, right?
I did. Yeah.
Mhm.
There's you can also work and have it feel like play. Like when I work, it's play. It's rarely work.
Mhm.
Every
Right.
once in a while, if I have trouble with lines or something, that's work. And you're like, oh, I'm so relieved when it's over. But mostly, I'm in the zone. But yes, I think that campaign is so important too. And not just for kids, but for all of us. We have to be playful.
Hmm.
Nothing good comes from nose to the grindstone, kind of like, oh, another day, another dollar. It's so
Yeah.
much more fruitful and enjoyable, and when it's play.
Well, play opens up the crown chakra, opens us up, and work tightens us. So if I were to put a shape to it,
Mhm.
play would be very round and work would be very pointy or square.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
so even, I mean, I consider myself every day when I do consultations for people, it's play. I mean, I get to
Oh,
hear
good.
stories. I get to live people's lives every day,
Mhm.
all over the world. That's
Yeah.
playful and wonderful and fun. And I get to explore the dimension of astrology. Um, and when I stay in play, I don't get tired.
Oh, isn't that something?
When
Yeah,
I
you can
make
play
it
all
work,
day.
mhm,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because we inflow when we're playing.
Mm-hmm.
It's that
And it
combination of inflowing,
energizes
not
us.
just outflowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you also get to be of such service to people too.
Mhm.
You know,
I
it's
think
a
you
great
have
thing.
profound things to share with the world that Pluto on your descendant is going to help you
Okay.
figure out in how you're going to do that. Whether that is continuing to act, whether that is creating something, I don't know how it's going to show up, but
Yeah. Me
you have
neither.
something. And you know what I usually say with Pluto is this is when divine will takes over, in a way, our higher self takes over. and we are guided and moved along certain directions. And it is our job to just flow with that,
Yeah.
flow with the current. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a pretty willful person. And when I had a very strong Pluto transit to my descendant, which was back in 1995 and 6, I didn't flow with the current. I said, I don't want to go that direction, universe. I'm going to go this direction.
Yeah.
And the
And it
universe kept going,
hurts,
no.
doesn't it? Yeah.
Oh, I got bloody knuckles from knocking on closed doors.
Yeah. Yeah.
And until my
Yeah.
knuckles were like raw and bloody, and I finally said, okay, I'll go the direction the universe is guiding me. And it all worked out great. It was my
And
own
did you
resistance.
know it was Pluto? Were you able
Oh,
to
yeah.
look at your house? Yeah, yeah. But and you didn't know any better that Pluto's going to get its way.
Well, the
Yeah.
Scorpio in me just thought I
Oh
can
yeah.
will it into existence. So
Yeah,
I
right.
got a big
That's
lesson.
Scorpio.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Not
Oh,
moving, staying right here.
oh, putting my foot down and, wanting control.
Yeah,
I got a
sure.
big lesson in surrender and trust, which is what Pluto teaches all of us, surrender and
Mm-hmm.
trust
Yeah.
and let
Yeah.
go. But, I think about Pluto also offers a change in perspective. It's a perspective change, the outermost planet.
Right.
And so it's just going to be so fascinating to see, and you're open enough that it can, and your age, when I went through my Pluto transit, I was in my 30s and I still needed some more polishing and wisdom.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no, well, it remains to be seen, but I am
Mhm.
completely open to whatever it is. Even if it's continuing acting, I just know it will be different. It will be
Mhm.
something and it'll have a different feel and it will, yeah.
Yeah, a higher level.
It
So
won't
I
be
imagine you meditate, you spend time meditating, you probably spend
I
time,
ponder.
you ponder,
Yeah, I don't do the
closed
I
eyes meditations.
right, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I sit quietly.
Well, you
I
have too
walk
much
a lot.
cardinal energy in your chart for the closed eyes
Oh,
meditation.
good. I'm glad to hear that. Now that's the excuse because I kind of beat
Oh, yeah.
myself up for not being able to.
Um,
Hmm,
yeah. No, I wrote an article about that, especially for
hmm,
affirmations and manifesting, that when you have a lot of cardinal potential in your chart, you'd be better off walking and meditating or
mm-hmm,
affirming while you're on the treadmill or while you're
mm-hmm,
moving your body, not
mm-hmm,
closed eyes and stillness. You
mm-hmm.
need movement and physical motion to
Yeah,
activate those higher levels.
yeah,
And you know
yep.
what? These days, life is the meditation.
Mm-hmm,
Don't separate ourselves into these moments of spirituality over here and then moments
right.
of life over here.
Yeah.
It's one big continuum. Eyes
I've had
open.
dreams. Yeah, I've had dreams of being in a car in the back seat and just zipping down the highway and going, slow down. And I want to jump in the front and drive. More than one dream of
Mm.
that. And I think that is about me trusting and just being, I was kind of yanked along in the dreams. But
Oh,
I had one recently where a lot smoother. I had like an awareness in the context of the dream that just let it take me, let it take me.
oh, isn't that amazing? Do you tend to have intuitive dreams or future dreams?
Yes, I do. A precognitive, not so much, but intuitive, sure.
Mhm,
Um, uh, they tell me a lot, and I also
mhm,
do. I have like astral travel, all that
mhm,
stuff. I can't make it happen, but it'll come upon me, and
mhm.
off I go.
You can invite it.
Yeah, I've heard you
Mhm,
could. I haven't been successful.
mhm,
I've looked into HemiSync and the Robert Monroe Institute.
mhm,
I've done
mhm.
those exercises. It hasn't happened, but yeah.
Well, you can invite it and it'll show up when it wants to show up.
One happened in this room like 2 years ago. I just went right through the walls.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
as even as a young child, I really was so interested in this whole field. I was trying to see if you can walk through a wall. I mean, it sounds crazy and it sounds ridiculous, but I wanted to levitate. So 8 years
Mm-hmm.
old, I'm trying to figure out, how does one levitate? I don't even know how I knew about levitation at that
Yeah.
age, but I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Probably
still.
something like Teresa of Avila in a past life or something.
Well, and speaking of that, when you mentioned how you like to profile through the moon or how you're so interested
Yeah.
in it, I believe that the moon shows us what where we have experience from other lifetimes,
Oh,
collected
okay.
experience, like we bring it in a little toolkit, and we can reach in and say, I know this frequency. So Moon and Aries. I know Moon and Aries, which is the warrior, the assertive, the
Let's
pioneer.
go. Let's do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
No
Get to
need
the
to
point.
linger.
And it's a skill set that you have naturally. And the reason that we live our moon is because it's so comfortable. It's familiar. It's familiar.
Yeah.
But our
That's
sun
my
sign
sharp temper. And did you have sharp temper, fast temper? And all? Yeah, me too. And then it's over, but it's like explosive.
Yeah.
But it could be.
And
Maybe
that's why
not so
martial
much
arts
anymore.
was so good for me. I could get it all out,
sure.
doing something productive, like, kicking the bag.
Yeah, right.
But our sun sign is more what we need to learn, what we are developing. It may not be familiar to us, so the Cancer part of you, the compassion, the sensitivity, you're polishing that part. Do you think you're going to study more astrology?
Well, it seems to be. Yeah.
Naturally, right?
I'm following the best. I've had several readings from you, or 2 or 3 anyway. And I had a reading with Pam Gregory. I did an auction and I won it. I bullied my way in there and overbid everybody. No one could touch me. So I had a great reading with her. And I just learn a lot hearing you folks talk, and to have the two of you do that podcast that you did in the beginning of the year, or the end of last year, was just wonderful. Yeah, just wonderful. Yeah, so I'm sure I'll study more. Well, you both are. You're both great.
Yeah. Well, I think you have a great mind for it, and don't know what you will do with it for sure, but as far as ever doing consultations or not, but you have a great mind for it. You're on a great journey here, and I appreciate talking to you so very much. The Maverick in you, I mean, you are taking creativity and spirituality to very deep levels, and you get to go play it in life. And that's, the part you're playing is really the mystic master playing, in this, playing on stage.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I really enjoy it, and everything that comes my way feels like, oh, here's another opportunity to do this. It's so, like I said, it will be interesting, because I do feel that change is afoot. I feel transformation is afoot, and what I will be doing just with that Pluto transit on the descendant and ascendant. So.
And in the world.
Yeah. Do you see the descendant being the midheaven is like reputation and in the world, but you also see the 7th house cusp as being in the world as well, and not a deeper sense of partnerships or something, but
there's many levels. It definitely can be partnerships and connections with others, and our relationship patterns, but it's also exposure to the world publicly. Exposure to the world. It's like the entrance out into public view. Yeah, Grant Louis talked about that. Grant Louis is an old astrologer, and he talked about that with the 7th house. It's the emergence out into public view.
The emergence. And then would you say then the midheaven is like the totality
status, reputation, career? All the 4 angles in astrology are the most powerful parts of the chart. So one of the beautiful things that you get right now is when an angle is contacted by transit or solar arc, it is the most profound development you will ever have.
Wow. Yeah, you don't get a lot of those with Pluto in your life.
No.
It's so it moves so slowly. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be fascinating to see.
Don't blow it, Lynch.
Don't blow it, Lynch. Do it with excellence. And you have planets, you have other technical things happening in your chart, which are saying you're blooming. Something new is blooming. Planets at the solar arc, bisolar arc moving to the Aries point, blah, blah, blah. But you are blooming. So that's going to be fascinating to see what happens.
Thank you, Kathy. I so appreciate that. I feel like I got a reading, and it's so nice. We shared it with everybody.
Well, thank you for sharing your wisdom on this podcast. There's more to you than meets the eye. Layers and layers and layers of depth. And I really appreciate this conversation.
Oh, please. Thank you so much. I so appreciate it. I always appreciate you and the work you put out there.
Thank you, Jane. All right. So happy adventures to you.
Thanks. Same to you.
Thank you. And bye for now.